Talk about rest, I sleep when I'm dead. Motherfucker wanna come through tripping. Listen, I'ma rip it, I'm a kung fu.
Welcome everybody to the TruExact Show. I'm here with Chris and our special guest joining the show again. Friend of the show, Chris Lopresti. How you doing, man?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
I'm great. It's crazy because when I message you again, it's hard to believe it's been over 2 years since you've been on the show. You were like episode 18, and now we're on like 160. So really appreciate you staying in touch. You've been really cool wearing our T-shirts and stuff. So just want to throw that out there. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. I was actually, when I was setting up tonight, I was like, oh, yeah. I was trying to remember where I was sitting last time. I think it was sort of in the middle of COVID, if I recall correctly, and things were crazy, but it feels like yesterday. So I guess that's a good thing.
I know, and when I look back, I was a lot thinner back then, and it really annoys me.
So was I.
It really annoys me.
Yeah.
Really quick, elephant in the room before we get into some questions about baseball, the playoffs, Mets, Yankees, Giants, whatever you want to talk about. Aaron Judge's 61st home run. Now, I consider myself a baseball purist and historian. Don't take that lightly, not a historian, but I do love the game. I love the purity of it. Personally, even if it was a Met who did it or Red Sox who did it, I consider 61 the record. That's just me. I've always been like that. What about you? Let's just get your thoughts on it since, you do sports shows and stuff.
Yeah, I think for me personally, that's kind of the feel I've had. Now, I can't say that if it wasn't a Yankee, I would feel that way. I probably have a little bit of a bias because it's a Yankee and because it's a homegrown Yankee and a guy who, for all we assume, is doing it clean and doing it the right way, the humble attitude and all that. So, I mean, look, I'd look at it. I come from it two angles. I do think that if he hits the 62nd, that in my eyes, he is the single season home run record. But I would also say, I think it's absolutely ridiculous that the likes of Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire and Roger Clemens, and even to a lesser extent, A-Rod, are not in the Hall of Fame. So that's a whole nother chestnut for another day. But if I could kind of combine them, it's not, I don't look down upon those guys. They weren't the only ones that were doing it in that era. I'm sure some of the pitchers they were facing were as well. It's almost just like, I don't know. You just kind of have to acknowledge that things were different at the time. And I think specifically as you look at what Judge is doing and you look at how far removed he is from the next closest guy in this particular season, I think that speaks to the enormity of the accomplishment, that he's basically 20 clear, 20, I think it's, what is it? Alonso has 40s.
21 now, yeah.
Yeah, 21 clear of the next closest guy, which is just, absurd. So I think it's awesome. I love that, Roger Maris Jr. was there and handled it with class and dignity. So I'm eating it all up. I'm going to view it as the single season record, but I also understand the folks that don't see it that way. Aaron Judge included, by the way, right, who said he still views Bonds as the record holder, especially since he grew up a Giants fan.
I'm one of those people, by the way. To me, steroids, like you said, everyone was doing it. I'm sure a lot of the pitchers were doing it and everything. Yeah. And at the end of the day, they still have to make contact with a 90 plus mile an hour fastball, an 80 mile an hour changeup or curveball, whatever they're throwing. It's not easy.
No.
So the fact that he put the bat on the ball 73 times for a home run, that even steroids discounted it, but it's still an amazing accomplishment. Like, I'm not going to discount it just because.
No, I don't discount it. And look, Bonds was, one of the great players you've ever seen. Steroids aside, that's the point that everyone makes. Even before steroids, he was a great player. Yeah. So, the number is just it. I don't know. It got out of hand because what was his next highest season? Like 49 or something like that? Did he ever hit 50? None of the others. So, again, we can go through the minutia of the numbers. But, in those years, whether it was 98, 99, even 2001 with Bonds, there were so many guys hitting a ton of them, So for Judge to be this far ahead of the field in an era now where, you're
perceived clean.
Well, that, and also, and I made this point on SNY last night. I'm not the only one that said it. The amount of different pitchers these guys see in any given night, you're not getting 3 and 4 at bats against the same starting pitcher. You're seeing all these relief pitchers who are throwing 99, 100, nasty breaking stuff. The game is just managed and played so differently that, I think it makes it difficult on the hitters. And I think that's why batting averages are down and why, this season for him is such almost an outlier compared to what the rest of baseball is doing.
No, it's definitely huge. It's definitely huge.
I gotta give, like you said, the Hall of Fame thing. They should be in the Hall of Fame because if you're gonna reward managers like Torre, La Russa, of the guys who managed them and got in, there's no reason that the players shouldn't be in.
Yeah,
How could you award the managers?
it's the managers, Bud Selig. I think it's
Yeah.
just a sour grapes thing on the part of, the voting members of the media. And I get it. I'm not saying it's a black and like an easy issue to decide yes or no. Like I understand there's some middle ground, some gray area, some minutia, all that. But anyone who watched those guys knows what type of baseball player they were. And again, compared to their peers who a lot of them were, I'm sure, guilty of doing things that technically they weren't supposed to be doing anyway. You
mean Brady Anderson might have been doing
the likes
something?
of Brady Anderson, right? Exactly. That one, what at that 50 home run season he had. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like you're gonna catch the guys that are the most glaring. So like if
True.
a guy that's like he could be doing steroids and hitting like 150, but like he's hitting 150, so you're not gonna look at him for steroids.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Barry Bonds hitting 73 home runs. Yeah, I mean that's a clear-cut candidate.
To your point, and I don't want to harp on this, we'll move on, but like Chris, you mentioned that like you still have to put the bat in the ball, but with steroids, the recovery time for injury, the fatigue might be different. So like guys might break down differently, like to where Judge might be tired. Bonds may have not gotten tired because of what he was taking. I don't know. I don't know the specifics of it, but whatever. It is what it is. 61's an accomplishment. Regardless, I personally think 60 is an important number for baseball. I agree. A clean guy getting there. There's something with seeing that 60 next to a name where he's perceived clean. I really think that's important, and I think baseball's been waiting for that for 61 years.
Yeah, yeah, and it's cool the whole, Maris 61 in 61, and now it's 61 years later. The 9 for Maris, 99 for Judge. Sort of the symmetry of everything makes it pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. Really quick, would you, CeeLo, would you sell the ball if you got 62? Let's say you're at the stadium Friday night. What do you do? Because I have some requests. You want to hear my requests first?
Sure.
Okay, now these aren't that outrageous. At least I don't think so. I'd ask for a place in Monument Park, right?
Place you want your own like stone?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
I thought you said these weren't outlandish or ridiculous.
Yeah. I'd also want the Pinstripe Bowl renamed after me if they denied that, because you'll be around forever, right? And if not, I want a section in Cooperstown of my Little League stats in the Hall.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So out of the 3, do you think they'd grant any of those?
No, of course not. No, absolutely not. They're humorous though. I'll give you that. That's for
oddly enough, I think the Cooperstown thing might be the most like obtainable one.
Which is crazy. Yeah.
I don't even know about that. I don't think any of them are obtainable.
No, but seriously, what would you do with it? Are there any things everyone's thought of it? Everyone's had the discussion.
Yeah, I don't know that I've come up with a list of requests. I do know I would not be a guy who would, sell it on the open market looking for
me neither.
Big payday. Baseball was my first love pretty much from when I was old enough to stand and walk around and talk, and my parents have the home videos to prove it. So, I grew up a baseball romantic. Now, there have been times where that relationship has had its ups and downs, as most relationships do, for a variety of reasons. But I mean, sorry, I got a hair on my keyboard here. I'm a little OCD.
There could be worse things on a keyboard.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I don't know, man. I still, there are a lot of things that happen, not just in baseball, but in sporting events, that when I watch them, I legitimately get choked up. In fact, on WFAN, Boomer Esiason has made fun of me for that multiple times, and that's fine. I don't care. It's just how I'm wired. So, like watching last night, especially seeing Judge after the game with his mom, that kind of, I just eat that stuff up.
Yeah,
so,
it's weird. Yeah.
So if I was someone that ended up catching the ball, the thought of depriving the player and the organization and his family of that keepsake and that memento, and I get it. There's jersey, there's cleats, there's the bat, but there's something about the ball that I'm sure I would come up with some requests that were reasonable. And I would definitely make sure they got the ball back, make sure I got something out of it, but I wouldn't go run into, the secondary market or an auction or something. It's just not how I'm wired.
I agree
have
with
a
that.
question about it too, because I'm an avid listener of the fan. And I heard that Evan Roberts and Carton were talking about what they would do, and Carton came up with some outlandish things.
Shocker.
Yeah, no, big shocker. But Evan said like he'd want season tickets for life, and I was thinking about whether or not that'd be like a reasonable request, because in my mind I was like, well, the ball's probably worth around a few $1 million, you'd think.
Yeah.
Like, is that like worth $1 million, just lifetime season tickets? No,
Probably more.
I'm 23 years old, but like I feel like that's not that big of an expense.
No, especially when you spread it out over that many years.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
It's not. It's
like
not like they're paying it out
game.
up front. You
Yeah.
know, and I'm sure. Look, again, I've never worked in a ticket office for a professional team, but I'd imagine if that was sort of the lead request, they'd probably be pretty pleased that that's something they could offer. Now, maybe it's not, season tickets in the legend seats, first row behind home plate at Yankee Stadium, but something that, I don't know, could be negotiated.
Like bleacher seats. For example.
I think you do better than bleacher seats.
Yeah, but I think that's a stupid request, because how many games you really gonna go to?
Well,
if I went there for free.
Yeah, and in Evan's case, he goes to 1 million games anyway. So
yeah,
you have to consider the individual.
Evan should ask for free pencils for his scorebook for life. Right. That's what he should ask for. Exactly. But like, I would do Yankees playoffs tickets for life. Like, I would go that route. And no matter what, idea. Instead of the regular season. But like you said, Sheila, really quick to touch on like the emotional aspect. I have this conversation because my dad's one of these people who are like, there's baseball and everything else fills in the gaps. And he doesn't even want to hear that you like any other sport. It's like baseball. And I'm trying to explain to him, football is more popular. He just won't hear it. He's like old school. Like, no, it doesn't. It's like, so I grew up in a baseball family. My dad had one rule. You like the Yankees, every other sport, it doesn't matter. So I became a Cowboy, a Penguin, a Kansas Jayhawk, all over the map, right? All over the map. And I agree. Football to me is like the most passionate I am. I get in it. I could watch 12 hours. But there's something about baseball moments that are way more emotional and like pull on the heartstrings. It's really weird, right? Like, there's nothing.
Suspense. It's the suspense of baseball. It's a slow game. You're waiting, it's building the whole time.
Yeah. So
that's a good. I don't know why that is. Maybe I don't know. You're right. I definitely agree. Like, I feel that way, but I can't really pinpoint the exact reason. Maybe there's a number of them. Look, certainly, the history of the game, I think is a factor. Just because it's tracing, and not that the other leagues haven't been around for, like the NHL, even, original 6 teams. Like, I'm a big Ranger fan, so you get, not that their history of success is all that great, but I don't know, just when you can trace things back to a time and an era, look, certainly before we were born, before color television, before television broadcasts, it's, I don't know, there's just something charming about it. At least that's how I feel. I'm sure other people just roll their eyes at it. Who cares?
No, but I think you're right. I think baseball too, and Chris, you're a little younger, but like me and Sheila are near the same age, and it's like, it's more tradition, and you probably feel that too, even though you're young. It's like my dad growing up always brought a radio, like a handheld radio, to the beach and listen to Yankee games. Yes. I own a handheld radio, and with technology today, I don't need one. I can use my phone, but I still bring that little AM FM radio whenever I go on vacation or to the beach and listen to the Yankee games like my father did. So I think it's just like passed down as a sport.
Traditions, absolutely.
I just feel like baseball also finds a way to reach people, like football is like all hype. I feel like it's all over the place. Anywhere you go, like you go to a restaurant, you're seeing the billboards or whatever's in the restaurant. There's like, they got the NFL Bud Light thing. It's all over the place. Baseball is more like, you might stumble across it and then be like, oh, that was pretty cool. And then you get drawn to the game. It's like one of those, I feel like it's become a niche sport, even though it wasn't always. It was the pastime, obviously. But now it's more like a sport where people kind of like, if they catch it, they fall in love with it. It's like golf almost in a way now to me.
Yeah, I love it.
Like
I know some people despise that. Oh, watching golf is so boring. I love it. I can sit and watch it. I don't know. Baseball also, just because for the most part it's an everyday sport. I mean, obviously there's days off mixed in, but you take it with you pretty much anywhere. Like you made the point about the radio at the beach. Not that other sports aren't on the radio, but because of the nature of the game, and like you said, because it's slow, time in between pitches, those radio broadcasts really sort of become like an intimate conversation between the broadcasters and the audience, not only painting the picture of the plays, but just the dialogue and the narrative that goes on between pitches and throughout the course of the game. So I think it's unique in that way. No clock, obviously, is different than a lot of the other, the other 3 major sports for sure. Even if you're a soccer fan, you've got the clock running there. Golf, not a clock, but the finality of 18 holes unless there's a playoff. So I don't know. It's
Yeah.
it's something I never stopped and thought about that much, just because baseball has been with me since far back as I can remember.
Well, that's what this show's for, to get into the depths of the core of the person and
Right.
figure things out. Not really. We're not therapists. I'm not one. I just make music and I enjoy doing a podcast. So
There
before
you
we
go.
start crying, here we go, because I don't need to look like a softie here. Let's get into the playoffs and the Yanks. So we'll get into the Mets after if you want to, but the Yanks, expectations, obviously they're picked to finish fourth, or third. Like, nobody thought they were going to win the division. However, I don't want to say they overachieved, because as a fan, I'm greedy and I expect this. I expect to make the playoffs every year, and I don't want to not make the playoffs because that's all I know right
Yep.
now. So I personally think they're going to just once again run into Houston and lose. I'd like to know your thought where you think they'll go and like what the biggest key is. Is it someone like Donaldson stepping up? Obviously, Judge is Judge. They can pitch around him. So, like, what are some of the keys to the Yankees playoff runs, you think?
Yeah, I'm with you right now. My hopes are not extremely high. Giving a realistic answer or path right now for how they're getting through Houston, I can't really offer that, just because we've seen them fail against that team time and time again, both in the postseason and then even in the regular season this year, other than those 2 walk-off wins that they had. Keys, I have major concerns about the bullpen in a big spot. I think that's obvious because they don't really have a lot of guys in defined roles right now since Clay Holmes went south post All-Star break. Chapman is not a guy, even when he was at his peak, that you really felt you could rely on in the postseason in the closer spot. So, they have a lot of options and arms out there. It's just, I feel like any of them in any given performance or outing or appearance could just blow up and not be effective. So that's been something that they've kind of been navigating and negotiating, and it hasn't really reared its head since they've turned things around here in September. But that the style of game is most likely going to be different once they get to the postseason, especially if they end up getting to the ALCS and facing the Astros. Lineup wise, look, I get they like the way Josh Donaldson's played third base, but it just hasn't happened offensively for him. He's given you little glimpses, for 3 or 4. Even he just came off, I think it was a 5-game hitting streak, and he followed it up with a 1-for-16 with 7 strikeouts. He just can't quite find that stretch. So I don't really think that's going to change. The guy that they have to find a way to get going, in my opinion, is a guy that's actually hit really well for them in the postseason in recent years, and that's Stanton. And he has been an absolute zero since he came back from the IL. So I don't know if he's just not healthy enough to overturn it right now.
Hit the slam.
Yeah, well, that's you look. He's had a couple home runs, but he's been back for over a month now, and I did the numbers the other day. He's hitting about 148, and he's got 4 home runs and only 1 other extra base hit. He's got like 40 strikeouts in, it was like 90 or 95 at bats.
Jeez.
So yeah, and then again, that stuff's kind of slipping under the radar right now because they've been winning and because everyone's paying attention to Judge.
Right.
So that's a good thing right now that it's not a major focal point, but as they head into the postseason here, and like you said, if they're going to continue to, I don't want to say teams have been really pitching around Judge, because they've gotten to a lot of 2-strike. Yeah, but they've gotten to a lot of 2-strike counts. How many full counts has he had even in just the series in Toronto? He's drawn a lot of walks, but I think he's done a tremendous job of staying patient and not, because that's a guy.
Well, he's always past his whole career.
He draws. Listen, he's drawn walks throughout his career, but he's also been a guy that has been willing to expand and chase at times, especially with 2-strike. He's a high strikeout guy. Now, sometimes you can get him out in the strike zone with a swing and miss, but as far as going outside, there were so many close pitches between home run 60 and home run 61 and 2-strike counts that I was just like, I couldn't believe he was laying off of them. So he's done a tremendous job of that. Obviously, getting on base has helped them score some runs, because not so much Anthony Rizzo, but more Gleyber Torres has been hot, and he's been producing behind him. But the idea that they don't really only have, maybe 3 guys that you're feeling comfortable with, and there's a lot of after that, is concerning. I like what Oswaldo Cabrera's brought to the team. He's had some pockets of success, but I don't really know what to expect from him in a big spot in the playoffs. So there's question marks kind of up and down the lineup. Maybe that's not the worst thing, because in years past, when they've hit 1 million home runs and guys have had gaudy numbers, all of a sudden in the postseason that goes away. So maybe the fact that the lineup is constructed a little differently than it has been in years past will work in their favor. But when push comes to shove, I just have serious concerns about the bullpen And then also from a starting rotation standpoint about Garrett Cole. I got to address the elephant in the room. I mean, look, he takes the ball, he gives you innings, he strikes guys out. But and you saw it again in what day? What's today? Thursday. So it was Wednesday night. Not to date things, but I don't know when you guys are posting this. Another situation where he's cruising through, and then all of a sudden he has a blow up inning, and frustration sets in. And in the postseason, when the margin for error is so slim, I just worry about him having those blow up innings.
Isn't it amazing how, as a Yankee fan, like you could attest to this, the last homegrown pitcher has been like Pettit. Like we can't figure it out as fans, and like whereas the Mets have the pitchers but rarely get the position players, and the Yankees get the position players and rarely get the pitchers. It's very strange and frustrating. I don't know. It's kind of potluck there. So if the Yankees are in a clutch situation, bottom of the eighth, and Judge gets walked, not to say who's going to bat behind him, but like, who do you want in a clutch situation? Who do you trust the most in the playoffs out of this lineup? Is it Rizzo then?
Yeah, it is for me. And I know people look at his batting average and it's not great, but in a big spot, he's come up with some huge hits throughout the course of the season, late in games, in pressure situations. Veteran player, he's been there, lefty stick, usually works a good at bat. I mean, I get it. At this stage of his career, you can get him a lot of these guys, you can get them out, there's a lot of swing and miss in today's game. That's just the way it is. But just the body of work from him, the lefty aspect, the power aspect, the experience aspect, and the fact that, again, like we talked about with Donaldson and Stanton, there's just not a lot to grab hold of there right now. Glaber is on a great tear. Listen, hopefully it stays that way. But he's such a streaky hitter that that could go away at any moment. I have no idea what to expect from It'd be nice if the postseason was starting tomorrow for them because he's so hot. I mean, look, I know it's good from a team standpoint. They can rest up a little bit and figure some things out with the bullpen, get their starters in order, and get some rest for some of these position players, or even on the other side of that, get some at bats for some guys coming back, whether it be LeMahieu. It sounds like maybe Matt Carpenter next week might get in there. So it's interesting as you start to look ahead at what the roster is going to look like. And, we're a week away or so. Well, for them, it's a little bit longer because they have the bye now. But there's some unanswered questions just because they've had so many guys out, some guys that have stepped in and played well, and now a few that are about to get healthy. And obviously, you can't carry everybody. So it's going to be interesting how they line up this roster.
How do you feel about the Yankees getting rid of Andujar like this close to the postseason? I mean, they kept him around long enough. They didn't trade him. They didn't get anything for him.
Yeah, don't remind us.
I feel like his contribution to the team, whenever he's gotten the chance, I feel like he's made the most of it, or at least given enough of a reason to where he could be in a legit conversation to stay on this team and be a contributor.
Yeah.
Now, I don't think that he does any worse than what Aaron Hicks does. I thought he was better than Joey Gallo when he was on the team. Yet, obviously, those guys play. It's
stubbornness by the GM, though, probably.
No, I know. Like, you have this young guy who's homegrown. You've seen flashes in the past, especially that year where he really popped off. I don't remember if it was either
2018 when he got stiffed for the rookie of the year. Pretty much.
By Ohtani.
So you see this guy that brought up. You see the flashes, and then you sign an old head like Josh Donaldson, who at this point in his career, I think we can all confirm that he's a pretty streaky hitter. He's okay at third, but nothing like too crazy where I think he should be able to block Andujar from playing there. So I had a problem with them getting rid of him personally. I just want to know what your opinion was.
Yeah, I didn't love it. I think, the reason they got rid of him was the roster crunch and the needing a spot on the 40-man. So yeah, you could make the case they could have sent Hicks packing. I think, like you said, part of it is a stubbornness from the front office standpoint. For whatever reason, they've never really believed in Andujar. I think it was more an insurance policy that when they needed to call up somebody that they felt they could just, slot into the lineup and he'd run into a couple balls and get you a couple hits, they could do that. I give him credit that he kind of, for the most part, took the right approach, the right attitude, worked hard. He made himself into a serviceable left fielder, but I'm sure the Yankees internally had their doubts about, using him on an extended run as a complete player. It's not to say I necessarily agree with them. And good for Andujar in his first 3 games with the Pirates. He's driven in at least a run in every game. So, I mean, look, I think that's a better situation for him just because he can get the consistent at bats. It seemed like there was never going to be a consistent role for him here for whatever reason.
I just feel like when he was going, it was like him, Judge, and Sanchez were like the three young guys that were come up and be the leader of the team, and he just was the odd man out, never got a shot.
He had the injury, he had the shoulder surgery, and all of a sudden, then Gio Urshela came in, and they liked the way he was playing. So, and I don't think they ever really believed in him as a major league third baseman. So again, credit to him for learning how to play the outfield and being able to do it well enough to be serviceable. So I just think it was more a numbers game, and I'm not to say it's fair, and it's not the only time you see it happen where guys that have minor league options that take advantage of it and kind of just parachute them or shuttle them back and forth. So it's tough, and I feel bad for him. But again, I think him getting a chance to go elsewhere, even though it's Pittsburgh and it's not the Yankees, is probably what's best for him as far as getting a legitimate chance to play regularly.
It's an audition, but Seal, I think we're on line with the Yanks. Like, I think me and you agree, definitely. So I know you got a show tonight, so if you want to go cross town to the Mets now, I know Chris might want to hear you talk about your opinion on the Mets. I personally despise the team. I would root for the Red Sox over the Mets in the World Series. I've been in lockstep saying that for the last 15 years, so I despise the Mets. But it is what it is. I'd still root for a guy to break Maris's record. So go on, man. Take it away.
Yeah. Just a couple nights ago after the Mets lost the first game to the Marlins, I was in, it's funny you mentioned that you're not a therapist earlier. I was in therapist mode, talking the Mets down off the ledge, come on to the couch, we'll talk through it. And sure enough, things weren't looking so great on Wednesday night early on. And I'm thinking, oh boy, I'm going to kind of have the egg on my face here. So it was great to see them come back. And then on the other side, people were killing the Mets for losing to the one game to the Marlins. Well, the Braves had a bad loss to the Nationals. So, that's baseball. Not to borrow the John Sterling to Susan line, but that's what it is. The Mets have been so consistent this year, but there have been those head scratchers, like getting swept at home against the Cubs earlier this month, playing down to the Nationals, playing down to the Marlins on Tuesday night. That's the way it works. It was like they came through the tough part of their schedule and everyone thought, okay, it's cruise control from here, but that's not baseball. We see it all the time. Even the worst teams are going to win 60 odd games or so. So as far as looking ahead, I don't think I'm breaking any news here. It all comes down to what the pitching staff's going to do. Of course, they're going to need to score some runs. And it's not a lineup that really overwhelms you, but I think
I feel like it chops you down.
They grind at bats. They have guys that come through in some big spots. I love that Eduardo Escobar is finally starting to show what the type of player he's been in his career. And I've kind of been on that all season where, the question marks have been there. I'm like, you got to just stay with this guy. Buck Showalter believes in him. He has faith in him. And since he's come back from being injured, this month, Gary Cohen said it best last night with his call on TV on the walk-off. It's the month of Escobar, like it has been.
Really is.
He has like 20 plus RBIs this month. He's hitting home runs again. He's getting big hits like he did last night. I know he didn't on Tuesday night, but last night driving in all 5. So you combine that with the season Lindor's put together, obviously what Alonso is. And look, I know you saw it again Wednesday night. He gets a little too jacked up sometimes in those big moments late and close where, maybe he's trying to do too much, but it's been a tremendous season from him. There's no doubt about it. And if they can find a way to get Starling Marte back, I know he hasn't been cleared yet, but he is such a big part of that lineup, what they do. From a pitching standpoint, they have it lined up even in this series against the Braves. They've got their big 3 going. I know not everyone, but a lot of people are concerned about DeGrom off his last couple starts. I'm not buying that yet. Even the start in Oakland to me is, if anything, it's a blip on the radar. Maybe I'll look like an idiot after he pitches against the Braves, but he's
one of those people though.
He's too good. His stuff is too good. Look, I'm not saying he's going to give you 8 innings in the postseason, but the idea that teams are going to line up and just start knocking him all over the park. If he's healthy and he feels good, which I have no reason to believe right now that's not the case, I just don't see how it happens.
My only concern with DeGrom is I could care less about his last few starts. He's coming back. He's trying to figure out some new stuff, whatever it is. But my concern with him is that he's never really pitched in the big games. I know he had the 2015 run.
No, you're right.
Like that. But that's, 7 years ago now? And, they haven't made the playoffs really. They made it the next year in 2016. That was it. And he's never really had the opportunity to really show what he could do in a big game where it mattered because the Mets have pretty much been eliminated fairly early every year since then. So he's never really gotten the chance to prove, that he could shove in a big time situation. I'd almost say like I'd rather have a guy like a Masahiro Tanaka. I know he's a Yankee. He's not a Yankee anymore, but
There's a
in
name.
the playoffs, no, but in the playoffs, like he might have either let up 7 runs in the regular season or thrown a gem. In the playoffs, he was a stud.
Yeah.
Playoff Tanaka.
Not touch him. Yeah, so like I'd almost rather have a guy like that than a guy like DeGrom, who's this really big talent, best pitcher in the league. I don't think anyone can say otherwise right now.
All right.
But you don't know what he's going to be. He's almost a wild card, even though we've seen him do great things. Never in the playoffs, though.
Yeah, it hasn't. Yeah, like you said, he hasn't really been afforded the opportunity yet.
Yeah, no,
I don't know. I don't look at him, and he's not the kind of guy that I worry about as far as like his nerves go, or that he's going to wilt or anything like that. Now, look, maybe he will, because like you said, it hasn't happened. He's not the most demonstrative guy. He's sort of the opposite personality of Max Scherzer, obviously, even Chris Bassett. But I don't know, man. I admit I've got a man crush. I love watching DeGrom pitch.
I have a man crush on him too. I love him, but
okay, guys.
So
really?
he worries.
I know. No, look, I can understand from a Mets fan standpoint, you have every reason to have concerns just because, the lack of availability the last couple of years, the injury stuff can pop up at any time. The like you said, he hasn't hardly had the playoff experience. I mean, other than Scherzer, they don't really have any of that because, like you said, they haven't been there, and they've had some.
Cooky's been there a little bit.
Yeah, but Cookie, look at do you really feel good about Cookie after that dud he put out the other day against?
I'd rather have him. I'd rather have him than I'd rather have Walker. I don't trust Walker.
I like Carrasco over Walker.
I wouldn't worry about DeGrom, honestly, because in 2015, remember where they went up against the Cubs and everyone's like, "Oh, those young kids, they're all kids," and Matt shut it down. DeGrom shut Harvey. No, you're fine. That pitching shit doesn't mean anything. This youth is blown out of proportion when it comes to the playoffs. I saw the Angels and John Lackey shut down the Yankees in 2002.
Wow.
Like, you know what I mean? It's all crap. Like, oh, these are young kids. So what? This is their job. Like, go pitch,
I'll give you this example, not to cut you off. And it might be it's probably a bad example just because the stage is, the level is different. And I don't even know how many years ago this was now, but I'll never forget watching DeGrom pitch in the All-Star game. I don't remember what year it was. And he came into the game and absolutely blew away the three guys he faced. I couldn't tell you the names, but it's the All-Star game. They were all legit. And I mean, there was no hesitation. Give me the ball on the mound and just absolutely, it was one of the most electric innings I've ever seen thrown in my life. Now I get it. It's the middle of the season. It's an exhibition, but point being, you could see the adrenaline pumping through him on the mound, and it didn't overwhelm him. If anything, it took him the other way. Now, I understand in the playoffs, you're relying on him for more than an inning. I mean, so you want to see some distance and some length, and kind of like we were talking about with Garrett Cole, he can be prone to looking like he's untouchable. And then all of a sudden it's that one inning where things go wrong, or it's the one pitch where he gives up the 3-run homer to the Pirates a couple weeks ago. But I mean, just from a stuff standpoint, if he's on, I don't know how.
He's doing stuff Pedro did.
Don't hit him.
Yeah, he's doing shit Pedro did back in 98 to 2001, and Pedro was striking out the steroid guys.
Yeah,
which was crazy. I gotta do a shout out to my friend Nino Bless for that one. Me and him were arguing about Bob Gibson and Pedro, and he was like, "Yeah, but look at who Pedro was striking out," and I was like, he has a point, and he's actually got me there.
Pedro at his height was unbelievable.
Actually got me there. So, all right, CeeLo. But like we could say too, I know we could talk about Judge, we could talk about DeGrom. It always comes down to that random person. 98, Scott Brocious. 2015, Daniel Murphy. You're gonna have these random guys. It might be IKF. For all the shit he's gotten, he might be the one who bats 340 in the LCS. And
he'll put the bat on the ball, so maybe.
And you never know, Didn't Bucky Dent win a World Series MVP in 78 or something? So
hit the big home run.
Exactly.
So
we could all predict, and it's like I said, the only thing you can predict is you can't predict sports.
Yeah.
So. CeeLo, I know you've been gracious with your time. You gotta go, but let's get some predictions from you, just because it's fun to do.
Yeah.
Give us your World Series prediction. I mean, let us have it here.
You think I would have given this some thought already? Well, I already told you I don't see the Yankees getting past the Astros, so I've got the Astros there. Though I feel like they're starting to show some chinks in the armor a little bit here the last couple of weeks. Alvarez is banged up. I know Verlander's back, but he missed some time. I don't know. I guess I
And
shouldn't.
it's hard to keep getting there too. People forget that.
It is.
You know, eventually you get picked off. It's tough to repeat and keep going. You know, that fatigue.
162 is a long season, and you're adding all the playoffs.
Yep.
And I'll say this: if the bracket kind of holds and the Rays find a way past the Blue Jays, I could see them giving Houston some trouble just because Tampa Bay's pitching when it's on and their guys are healthy, and they just got Glasnow back the other night. So like if he's all of a sudden going to be part of the postseason rotation, and I don't know yet that they're going to go there because he's just back from Tommy John surgery, but that guy when he's on is nasty. McClanahan's nasty. The way that they just use their bullpen, the Yankees have been stifled by them forever. So I could see them giving a team like the Astros trouble, but I'll pick Houston out of the American League. In the National League, I've been on the Mets all season, man, so I'm not going to go away from it right now. A lot has to go right, obviously. They've got to do a good job here in Atlanta. I mean, I can't stress enough the difference between, in this case, winning the division versus the wild card, because then you're looking at the Padres and the Dodgers versus, the winner of the bye and the winner of probably the Cardinals and the Phillies, depending on how it all shakes out. Not that, the Cardinals are anything to kind of just dismiss because they can be a tricky out. But I just like, I don't know, everything about the Mets. I feel like they're well constructed. I love the manager. I love the pitching staff. And like you said, guys that step up in the postseason, they don't necessarily have a lineup 1 through 9 of mashers or anything like that. But I do think they have a couple of guys that can step up in big spots. Right. And we talked about Escobar already. He could be that guy if he kind of continues this hot streak he's on. Not that he's an unknown or unnamed player, but he's new to New York. And it took him so long this season to get going that, with where he's at right now, I could see him having a big postseason.
I'll say this. The thing about the Mets, they're very similar to the Giants in football. They don't make it a lot, but when they do, they're scary. Like, they make their runs when they get there. And it's like, even they're not overpowering. They're very, like, they could be a boring team. They could win 1-0, 2-0, but it seems to go their way, whether it was like 86 or like 2000. Like, the matchups always go their way, and that's why I'm skeptical of just writing them off. Even if they play the Dodgers, like, are you really that scared about? If
I'm
you
not
have
scared of the Dodgers.
Scherzer, like, you have the 1-2 punch. CeeLo, we went through it in 01. Like Schilling and Johnson, like the Yankees were the better team. I mean, they're facing Rod Barajas and Mark Grace and Matt Williams, Reggie Sand. I could go on Tony Womack, and they lose because they were overpowered by the two pitchers. So, like, you got a shot, man. Like, that's a team that I don't want to see if I'm the Yankees. I'd rather lose in the LCS because I don't know if I'd be able to take losing.
Oh, here we go. Don't be that guy, man.
I am that guy. 100% that guy.
I've had this argument a number of times now.
I'm that guy.
I want to say maybe since June, and it's not just it's you. It's Evan Roberts. Yep. It's my buddy Tommy Lugauer at the fan, and on both sides, Yankee or Met fans. Oh, I don't want to play. I can't handle it.
I want it.
Of course you do.
That is the attitude that you should have.
I want the easiest path possible. I want the team that I know my team's going to beat the crap out of. That's who I want.
But it doesn't work that way anyway.
An easier target than the Dodgers?
It doesn't matter. I'd rather lose to the Dodgers because I wouldn't have to hear the fans around.
And that's the thing I have the problem with. Yeah,
that's just me. But
you're just afraid of a little competition.
Yeah, 100%.
Exactly. I can't stand that.
Yeah, if the Cowboys are playing the Giants, I want like the worst quarterback in. Like, I don't want their starter in. Like, I want to win.
Right. I don't want there to be any excuses when my team wins. I don't want some of the other fans. Oh, so and so didn't play. This didn't happen.
All that matters is that trophy at the end. But that'd be interesting though. Let's touch on that for like 2 seconds because I know you gotta go. Dusty Baker versus Buck Showalter. Boy, what other two managers deserve World Series rings as managers than them two? I mean, whether it's 0-2 with the Scott Spezio and Dusty Baker, and then even the Nationals all those years they were good, and the Reds even were decent, and then obviously Buck builds the Yankees and builds the Diamondbacks. And I mean, these two, that's the only saving grace. I would actually like to see Buck win one. I would have no problem with that because I think he's very deserving. It'd be a fun matchup. And
I think from a pitching standpoint, both teams obviously offer a lot there. I mean, the Mets have, like we talked about, the 1-2 punch. With the Astros, it's more Verlander and then just a lot of solid guys behind him.
Yeah.
So it would definitely be an interesting matchup. I think lineup wise, the Astros probably offer a little bit more depth. But again, we talk about these things. You just ripped off those names from the Diamondbacks from 0-1.
Yeah, they haunt my dreams.
Offensively. Yeah, I mean, look, it was a number of things. Obviously, Schilling and Johnson was huge.
I cried.
Yeah, no, I've had we have a work chat. We have a group chat of some guys that have worked together over the years in radio. And we've kind of all ended up in our various places, but we've kept the chat together. And the Yankee fans in the group, we've had this argument multiple times about which was the worst loss, the 0-1 World Series or the 0-4 ALCS with Boston. And as bad as that was, and as historic as that was, to me, 0-1 was still worse just because of the 9/11 aspect, the way the Yankees won their games at home, specifically the 2 walk-offs, obviously. And then, for Pettit to be tipping pitches and get shelled in game 6 and they get blown out. And then really game 7, and I'll never forget this, when Alfonso Soriano golfed that splitter basically off his shoe tops 15 rows deep. I'm like, this game's over.
Didn't Mariano strike out the side in the 8th too?
I think he did. Yeah,
they brought him in the 8th, and then you're like, what was weird is, as Yankee fans, what people don't realize, you weren't used to losing. Like you had 1-3 in a row. So like Mariano comes in, and I think Mark Grace leads off with a base hit. It was a Mark Grace, and you're like, what's happening here?
Right.
Like you're watching.
Womack has the ball down the line.
Yeah.
The bunt was. And by the way, and I've said this, and I don't know that it's factual. I mean, Jeter was clearly injured at that point. Yeah. And even on the blooper by Gonzalez that wins the game, I think, and I know they had where they were positioned defensively, and it wasn't like he was playing his traditional depth at shortstop, but I think a healthy Jeter actually might have had a chance to go back and make that play.
Yeah,
maybe not. Maybe that's crazy, but he was just, you could tell he could not move at that point.
Yeah, and Jared, and like 0-1, we forget as Yankee fans, what people don't realize who weren't around for that. It was the end of the era. Like the new guys came in after that. Like you had like Tino was gone. Brosius was gone. You had Robin Ventura, Jason Giambi the year after. And it was just like, a bunch of fill-ins. It was a weird time, that 0-2 to like 0-8 area, like Jared Wright, who was a star.
Guys were still really good.
They were, but
I know it wasn't the same, but
they were good, but it was a lot of like
fill-ins. It was weird. It was weird.
The word I'm looking for? Like reinforcements from the outside. Like the core guys, the Magic. Like A-Rod came in, Gary Sheffield came in. So like they were trying to pluck these guys from other spots. Randy Johnson came in, and it just. Listen, it worked in 03.
Over again, right?
It worked in 03 to get through with the home run from Boone, but then after that, once they lost that series to Boston, everything changed.
And like I remember as a kid, like when they were winning 4-5, my dad was like, "Just enjoy this; you'll never see it again." And I'm sitting there like, what do you mean? Like they're gonna win every time. And like it took me to like the older you get, you realize how special it was because you will not see that again. Like even the Giants, even it was 3 and 6 years and then they fell off. Like it just doesn't happen like that. But CeeLo, man, just a couple things. Thanks for your time. I just got a couple gun to your head because we did that 2 years ago. I normally don't do it, but nothing crazy, just 3 things. So
sure.
All right. Would you rather, what was more special? The Giants 2007, 2008 Super Bowl or the Yankees 96 World Series for you?
I'll go Giants. The Patriots aspect, and because
you were old enough to drink too and party.
I actually bet the Giants I put a little wager in on the Giants to win the game by 1 to 6 or 7 points. So I made some money off of it.
Nice.
And also because of what followed with the Yankees, obviously. I mean, I can say that after the fact, and I know the Giants won in 2011 as well, but that one, because they were such an underdog to New England, was awesome.
Yeah, it made me miserable as a Cowboy fan. Yeah. All right. Next year, gun to your head. Judge on the Yanks or not?
Yes.
Okay. DeGrom on the Mets?
Yes.
IKF on the Yankees?
No.
Hicks on the Yankees?
No, God, no.
All right, you got to get rid of one movie, Little Giants or Little Big League?
Oh, wow. That is really hard, but I have such a soft spot for Little Big League that I'd have to say goodbye to Little Giants.
that
And don't
dude's
and
been-
listen, I love Rick Moranis and Ed O'Neill, and everyone else that's in the film, but Little Big League is one of my favorites.
That dude's been ducking me for 2 years. I've been in contact.
That's
with
right.
him.
Yes.
I know. I was supposed to get him on. I'm still trying.
Yeah.
But, hey, whatever. All right. Got to get rid of one. A League of Their Own or Rookie of the Year.
Oh, definitely Rookie of the Year. And that's nothing against Rookie of the Year. League of Their Own is in my top 10 of movies, period, not just sports films.
Well, now you got these two to final it out. A League of Their Own or Little Big League.
Little Big League's got to go. League of Their Own. I could watch League of Their Own every night and be happy for the rest of
It's
my
one
life.
of my most quoted movies. That Clueless
it's
and
incredible.
Schindler's List. Real weird three.
Wow. That is a weird three. I'll tell you what,
Very
I did
weird
see,
three.
you know, when were you born? Where are we that close?
I'm going to blank this out, but 1986.
Okay, me as well. So we're basically the same age. Yeah, I did watch Clueless quite a bit growing up. I will admit to that. League of Their Own, I quote it all the time. Even just like there's so many aspects of that movie, but like John Lovett's basically 15 minutes.
Yeah.
There are like 4 or 5 epic lines. He packs so much.
It rivals Anthony Hopkins' 20 minutes in Silence of the Lambs, if you ask me.
That's a good point.
It definitely rivals that. He should have an Oscar for A League of Their Own.
Yeah.
Sheila, man, thanks a lot. Chris, you have anything? Last minute stuff?
It was just a pleasure, honestly, man. It was really nice talking to you.
Good talking with you guys as well. Thanks for having me.
Catch CeeLo on, obviously, WFAN.
Wherever.
SNY, you'll be on tonight, even though this won't be the same night when we post this. CeeLo, man, thanks a lot for coming on.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.